teams wearing NBA jerseys instead of WNBA jerseys. I take it that didn't sit too well with you.
No, and it's been an ongoing subject in our league that goes back a couple of years. And I remember expressing, and we all feel that way. Everybody in the room, in terms of all the teams, and probably the leadership of the WNBA that was present. They understand that it probably should happen, but we're not willing to stand up to the NBA and say, look, this is problematic. This doesn't cost money. Maybe the money is that you put, the WNBA in terms of the screening for a jersey. How much money can that be? I'll pay it. I'll pay for it because we are taking young people, young girls and boys, because boys are watching too, and conditioning them that they're less than. Where is the WNBA? These young girls don't aspire to play in the NBA. It's not going to happen. And so, whether it's over in Europe when they have, or they're in Africa, where all these places that they're trying to cultivate the global aspect of the game of basketball. And I just feel strongly that the NBA is an iconic brand. And that's what I'm told by the leadership. It's an iconic brand, and absolutely is. So then let's use that brand to uplift its other brands. It's like Apple. The iPhone is their main product, right? Well, let's use it to help, sales with the iPad, or perhaps the Apple Watch, or other entities that fall under Apple. It makes no business sense to me that they would not use the brand to put on girls a WNBA logo. That's, from a business standpoint, it's a big miss. When you're using the NBA brand to travel around and put on these clinics, to not emblazon WNBA for these young girls, and what we're doing to them as they grow up, is we're just fostering that notion that so many of us feel, so many women feel, that we're inferior. We're treated inferior in an inferior way that is unacceptable. And as progressive as this league is, that is something that would be so simple, and it is very painful. I will say that every time I see that. It hurts me, because it's just wrong to have another generation of girls being shown the same thing that my generation was shown. And we have to do better. And standing idly by is going to do nothing. I want Adam Silver to call me. I want to call him, and I want to talk about how simple this would be for him to do. As simple yet meaningful. But I have not gotten that phone call.
Well, joking aside, I really think that, as soon as he gets past the China controversy, which I'm sure is consuming him right now, that probably would be a logical phone call. And as I always say, I think women's sports, even if you want to separate equality, which we shouldn't, but even if you want to go past the obvious societal impetus to have, equal everything, equal pay, equal attention, it's a growth stock. It just makes good business sense. I was looking at a tweet from Front Office Sports. Said during the 2018 season, WNBA averaged about 148,000 viewers on ESPN2. Fast forward to 2019, and with additional programming on ESPN and CBS Sportsnet, league viewership has grown to about 413,000. That's a 64% increase just in 1 year. It just seems to make sense with nobody's saying that starting next season, the highest paid women's basketball player should be making $26 million a year, although it wouldn't be a bad thing if we got there. It's really just more about a combination of little things and more exposure, and let the brand grow itself.
And I think that's, you said growth stock, and I think that's something that I use a lot, is that women's sports are not viewed as growth stocks. Anything that men are doing is considered a growth stock. So MLS, you want to come to the States, it's a growth stock. Esports, NBA 2K, it's a growth stock. Everything is the G League, but not women's sports or the WNBA. And that's what I said. It's actually, we're women are quite impressive, because, women in sport, despite a near media blackout of just 4% of the coverage, despite just 5% of global marketing dollars going to women, despite little things like not being able to have the WNBA on a young girl's shirt and have it wear junior NBA, despite all that, those numbers we're growing. It's we're surging. It makes no sense from a business standpoint that our league is viewed the way that it is by the NBA, by ESPN, It makes no sense because we are showing that the growth is there. And if you would give us more coverage, you will see it grow. I always use the example that you gave, how the media popularized Major League Baseball. And the way that we have treated the men's leagues, 50 years ago, 60 years ago, 80 years ago, that the same mindset doesn't exist. And, I have a few people on Twitter, that I try to educate. I'm open to, what people think, but the same tired narrative over and over and over again, where that's a broad brush of people saying that we're not interested in women's sports. And I always say, you're not interested in women's sports. There are many who are. It does not match the level of men's sports. Okay, that difference is not a negative for women's sports. We are far behind in terms of the historical part of men's sports. Men went first, and so they get everything. Obviously women, the narrative of, where we came from, and, just didn't have the right to vote until, in the 1929. It just, it's just one of those things that it just, I can't fathom how so many in our society can't see the gross inequities that exist for women in sport, women in business, women in politics. And I just, I'm going to die trying for there to be, the equity that we deserve.
Well, I admire you for engaging certain kinds of people on social media. The reality, though, and it's actually can be useful when someone who's intelligent and who can articulate the case the way you can, shoot some of that down. But the reality is, a lot of it is just based on hatred and evil and insecurity. And it's not that you're never going to win against those people, and you're probably not going to convert them. But I think the way you do it is a good, using them as a fulcrum to get the right views out there.
Well, I think that's important because I think that, the same things are spewed over and over again. For example, when Adam Silver says that every chance he gets, him and Mark Tatum say the WNBA loses money. Then all of these naysayers will say, but you lose money. That is not the whole story. And that's why I say I want the correct information out there. Yes, the NBA has invested in the WNBA. And then the other thing is, too, let's not say that men's sports are profitable, because they're not. The NFL, NFL teams are not profitable. It is difficult to make a profit because of the amount of money that they spend. Didn't say that their valuation of their companies aren't, really large. That's a place that I think for women's sports, if we are invested in, and that's the thing when I try to educate, is it's not just about the women's sports lose money. It's what is going on. How is it being promoted? Again, there's not the media coverage. There are so many resources that are not. Hey, men, you want to have an esports league? Let's build you stadiums for it. Soccer, let's build you new stadiums for it. Women's sports, well, we'll stick you over here. Well, not today. Let's move over there. Today, we're going to put you on this channel. Next time, at this hour, it's different day, different channel. And so, yeah, it is difficult to gain ground. And I think many people don't see that. And I think once that changes, you're going to see women's sports take off as a business.
Well, let's finish on that theme. Once again, thank you to Cheryl. I'm sorry. I don't know why I always do that. SuccessfulMarketingGroup.com. I also say Cheryl Reeve. SuccessfulMarketingGroup.com and SuccessfulMarketingGroup.com/Cheryl Reeve to get a free 40-minute action plan with Lori Ramsey. Cara Quinn, Cara Quinn. You can find her at Cara@brickandbanister.com and Bitesquad.com. Morning, noon, night, anywhere you are. Use a promo code TALKNORTH or go to Bitesquad.com and check out whatever deal they might have in your area. And also thank you to our producer, Brandon Morton. And follow us at Talk North Pod. I went from covering high school sports to covering pro sports, and I did it in Dallas. I started covering the Dallas Cowboys. And, I watched Jerry Jones, who we all thought was just this dumb hick who chased oil around Arkansas. And he bought the Dallas Cowboys, and I think he had to sell everything he owned and mortgage himself like crazy to do it. Well, why would he do that? Why would he be willing to basically sell off everything he owned to invest in an NFL franchise? Because whatever Jerry's many flaws, he was a pretty shrewd business person. And he knew that if you get an NFL franchise and the league kept growing the way it was growing and television rights fees kept going up, that eventually what he bought, I don't have it in front of me. I'm guessing he paid $50 million, $100 million, $200 million, something like that for it. Eventually, it'd be a billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar company. And that's exactly what's happened. So not only has Jerry profited on a year-by-year basis with all of his marketing deals and merchandise and everything else, but he went from buying a really depreciated stock to being a billionaire, maybe a multi-billionaire. And that's, I used to have Twins people in the early 90s say, hey, we lost money this year. I'd say, yes, but your owner is on his way to quadrupling or quintupling his investment. And he's going to, if he ever decided to sell it, he would make a killing. And if he didn't sell it, it would be because he was making a profit. So you never have to worry about the men's side. If they run their company with any sanity whatsoever, they are guaranteed to win.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, that wasn't the case, back in the beginning. It wasn't the case for the NBA back in the beginning. NFL, I think we've said this before on the show that they're much in the same place where women's sports are now. The NBA needed the Harlem Globetrotters to create interest. It took a long time. And so, David Barry, who was a great writer at Forbes, and Forbes moved on from him because he was telling too many truths, and the NBA was getting upset with him. But the idea is, sports leagues take a long time to create loyalty and kind of brand identity. It takes a really long time. 22 years is not a long time when you think about, kind of the longevity of a league. It's in the infancy stages still. It took, the NBA was in the 50s and the 60s, even in the 80s, early 90s. It really was Larry Bird, Magic Johnson that kind of gave the NBA an identity that catapulted them. And then obviously, Michael Jordan, coming along. And so how many years is that later? And then, Bill Laimbeer didn't make that kind of money that they're making today. That the franchises weren't, valuated the way that they are today. It's just the growth and the investment. People, people don't just jump out. They stick with it. And I think that's what, is needed on the WNBA side or women's sports. I look at the ownership of the Portland Thorns, the soccer team. They draw 20,000 people. They're the best franchise in women's soccer. Henry Paulson is the owner there. And, some of it, and it's a little bit like Glenn Taylor too, sometimes you stumble upon something where somebody talked you into something. David Stern talked Glenn Taylor into, being a partner in this WNBA venture. Henry Paulson said, but if I'm going to do it, I'm going to treat the women the same as the men. And when you treat it the same, and it's the same thing I talk about Glenn Taylor, when he builds a facility, Glenn Taylor says it's for both teams. I want the women to have what the men have. Now, our salaries are not the same, but how we are treated. Every time you see a Timberwolves logo, you see a Lynx logo. That is powerful. And again, that doesn't cost any money. That is a message so that when our players walk around here, they know. They do not feel like second-class citizens. The same thing is true in Portland. And so if you're going to do it, and do it the right way, you're going to get a return on the investment. 20,000 people is the average attendance in Portland, and they're successful. And, I think if Merritt does that, I don't know how long he's going to be a sports owner, but, it could take 20, 30 years before, a franchise could, or a sports league, could reach the level of valuation that we're talking about with men's sports. But, we just have to treat women differently in terms of our mindset for how we're investing. And I just can't believe that it's not viewed as a growth market. I can't believe that people aren't saying this is buy low. We got to get in because this is about to explode. Because I think we can all feel it. We feel the wave of women's sports and its popularity.
Absolutely. Yeah, future shows, I want to talk about Richard Deitch. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. Put out an interesting list of suggestions for the NBA to promote the WNBA. We can get into that. I know you're interested in Melinda Gates's her I don't know if it's her foundation or just her impetus to grow women's sports and equality in general. I also want to talk to you about maybe kind of your thoughts on if you have a 3-year goal, if you have a vision, or if you just kind of go year by year. I'm interested in your thoughts on all that. So let's hit that in future shows. Again, thank you to Brandon Morton. Thank you to our sponsors and everyone who listens. Check out TalkNorth.com for all of our shows, and we'll talk to Cheryl again next week.